Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some Meat Eater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls because I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like him. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.
You're listening to the Sportsman's Nation Podcast Network, brought to you by Interstate Batteries. Interstate Batteries has been a proud supporter of the Sportsman's Nation since day one. So, if you need batteries for your truck, batteries for your trail cameras, TV remote controls, flashlights, you name it, Interstate Batteries has what you need. They have thousands of retail locations all over the United States. So stop in, talk to a battery specialist, or for more information, visit interstatebatteries.com.
My name is Clay Newcomb, and I'm the host of the Bear Hunting Magazine podcast. I'll also be your host into the world of hunting the icon of North American wilderness, the bear. We'll talk about tactics, gear, conservation, but we'll also bring you into some of the wildest country on the planet, chasing bear. We met up with Damon Bungard. Damon is an interesting guy. He's used to be a professional whitewater kayaker. He lives in Tennessee, and we talked on this podcast about his dog, a Teckel. And we learned a ton about these dogs that are known for blood trailing animals. And that's what his dog Jaeger has been trained to do, to blood trail animals. So we not only talk about all the details of the breed and what they're designed for and what they do, but we talk about blood trailing game. And that's where I think you'll learn something as we talk about what animals do when they've been hit and when they've been wounded. Damon goes into detail about multiple really interesting blood trailing stories. He also talks about his Tennessee backcountry whitetail hunting and has had some great success with that. Super interesting podcast with our friend Damon Bungard.
We'll have to get a photo of us all recording later, but
yeah,
for Jaeger's Instagram feed.
Jaeger. Yeah,
dude, it's funny. We were like walking out yesterday. I was with Kim Emery, Firefly Publicity. And like we were just parking garage. Somebody goes, "Hey, is that Jaeger?" And I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "Can I get my photo?"
Get a photo with Jaeger.
Yeah. And she was like, "Did that just happen?" And I'm like, "I'm telling you, like, dude's a superstar."
Yeah.
Nobody.
So we're sitting here with Damon Bungard. Damon's not from Tennessee, but currently living in Tennessee, and
Correct.
he's got his dog Jaeger tied up to his chair. We just gave him a little water and food, and we got to introduce Jaeger before we even introduce you, David.
That's true.
So Jaeger is he's 2.5 years old.
2.5 years
Tell
old.
me what kind of dog he is.
Jaeger is a Teckel.
A Teckel.
A Teckel bred by Vom Mountain Creek. Teckels, most people look at him and think he's some kind of mix. Basically, a Teckel is the purest of the Dachshund breed from European hunting.
Is it offensive to call him a wiener dog? Let's just get that established.
Okay,
it is offensive. Done. You won't hear that come from me.
Yeah, so Teckels are just kind of come. If you go to Europe, the word Teckel just kind of means Dachshund.
Oh, really?
Teckel, Dackel, those terms just mean Dachshund. In the United States and in England in particular is kind of where they started using Teckel to refer specifically to working wire hair Dachshunds from European bloodlines.
I'll be darned.
So Teckels, if you're familiar with like Deutsch Drahthaars, and the difference between a Deutsch Drahthaar and a German Wirehair pointer. You can put the two side by side, and in most cases they look similar, but the DD, the Deutsch Drahthaar, is held to very strict performance and hunting standards in order to be able to breed.
Okay.
So all the puppies that come out are registered Deutsch Drahthaars. But
are they UKC registered?
They're usually in Germany. So like he's registered at the Deutsch Teckel Club in Germany. He's not registered here.
So UKC's like whatever. You're like bypassing them. That's like
so
peanuts.
And the best way to describe it, so in AKC or UKC kind of registration, there may be a great bloodline historically, working wire-haired dachshunds, and there are a lot of wire-haired dachshunds here in the States people use for tracking. But unless they've passed the standards, they're not a Teckel, and they're not registered to the German standards, haven't passed the tests.
Okay.
And like in the AKC, they may have, you can breed a short hair to a wire hair to a long hair.
I see. So
you can't do that in the DTK system.
Yeah.
In order for him to be, so he's one of now less than, I believe, 6 registered Teckel studs in all of North America, U.S. and Canada combined. And to achieve that, so he's registered at the DTK, and he had to pass a gunfire exam. So just reaction under gunfire, can't be nervous.
Hey, I don't want to get into that too much because I want to get into that in detail.
Sure. Okay.
But
we'll
before we get there, okay. So you did good. We introduced Jaeger.
Jaeger is
That's
here.
what I wanted to do.
He's at Jaeger Tracks on Instagram. If anybody wants to check him out, but he is definitely not your average dachshund.
Yeah,
and they look different too. Their legs are longer. Their backs are shorter.
Yeah.
Americans or U.S. breeding has kind of lengthened dachshunds and shortened their legs and taken a lot of the hunting out of them. I mean, dachshund means badger dog, and they use them overseas heavily still for above and below ground work, foxes and badgers and vermin hunting and big game. In a lot of places in Europe, you have to have a dog for big game recovery by law.
Right.
You have to hunt with a guide, and you have to have a dog for big game recovery. So they still use Teckels heavily, and that's why they're still so good.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Well, that's what we're gonna talk about. So on this podcast, we're gonna talk about blood trailing dogs, and just gonna try to glean some information from Damon. But aside from that, you're just introduce yourself as just kind of what you do in the outdoor industry and even your family and stuff.
Sure. So Damon Bungard, hello everybody in Clay's audience. I grew up a military dependent, so my father was a retired colonel. So I've lived
you were all over the place.
All over the world. States, Germany, Georgia, Texas, Kansas, Maryland, all over. Graduated high school at Texas. Went to school at Clemson on scholarship, and then started kind of paddling professionally whitewater.
Scholarship. What were your scholarships on for at Clemson?
Academic.
Okay. Hence the nerd glasses like me, right?
Yeah, I'll wear them. I have no problems. So I'm comfortable in my nerdness. And then started paddling whitewater professionally there and did a lot of but then I left there and took a job in the defense and aerospace industry in product development, working on various defense programs, and in Vermont. Lived up there for many years.
Let me go back to the professional paddling.
Yep.
Was that in North Carolina? Where it's South?
When I paddled whitewater, it was all over the world.
Okay, so that wasn't connected to a state. So
No.
you were.
I was traveling. Yeah.
Really?
How
old were you when you were doing that?
I was a whitewater junkie. I mean, I just paddled I just soloed the Grand Canyon a couple months ago. So I still paddle whitewater. We did a self-support, I guess is a better term. So, meaning no raft support. We had all the gear, all of our camping gear, food, everything in our whitewater kayaks, and there's 8 of us, and just soloed it, basically as a group. It's all 280 miles, so that was a cool trip.
That's incredible, man.
I don't paddle whitewater like I used to, as far as like difficult big waterfalls, hard creeks, or freestyle. But I used to compete and travel, and from Chile to Canada, and do big fly and drop expeditions just in whitewater.
See, I told you he was an interesting guy.
So I did that even when I worked in the defense industry, and I took an assignment in England for a few months with Airbus, and still was like kayaking in Wales and in France and stuff when I was doing that. But I've hunted my whole life. And eventually transitioned.
You're currently living in Tennessee. I don't know if we ever got there. I've interrupted you multiple times, and
That's okay.
I'm probably going to keep doing it because I'll ask you certain questions. But
yeah, so I took a job in the outdoor industry, and I managed product development at Jackson Kayak and launched Orion and different brands. As I've worked with as an influencer in different things, and moved from Vermont to Tennessee in 2014.
Okay.
I currently live there near Fall Creek Falls State Park, surrounded by a bunch of public land. And yeah, that's where we're at. So that's where I'm at with Jaeger and tracking with Jaeger and helping hunters. And
now you do a lot of well, maybe not a lot, but you hunt public land, even wilderness land in Tennessee.
A lot
for whitetail.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that kind of hunting and what you're doing and what your goals are inside of that.
Yeah, so I'd say growing up, we grew up as a military dependent. You don't have a home, right? But my home was my grandparents' land in South Carolina, and so no matter where we lived in the world, starting in second grade, my parents would put me on a plane and send me home, send me to South Carolina, and I'd spend my whole summer outside fishing and hunting and shooting, doing whatever. And then I'd fly back where we were. So whether I lived in Germany or Kansas, here you go, get on a plane, me and my brother, and we'll see you in the fall. And so I grew up outside, but I grew up whitetail hunting largely. You go to a field, you sit in a stand, and or you find a trail and you sit it. And it wasn't until, and that's just kind of how I hunted deer. That's kind of a lot of people hunt deer. Nothing wrong with it. It works. It's an effective way to hunt deer. But when I lived in Vermont, I got a wild hare to go hunt caribou in Quebec, and did that self-guided.
Really? Could you do that at that time?
Yep.
Can you still do that?
You can.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll be darned. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's self-guided, meaning, so this was like, there's a camp host, but all the hunting's on your
okay.
own,
That makes sense to me now.
Yeah,
you
so
had to go through an outfitter.
Correct.
But
yes.
you were hunting on your own.
You're hunting on your own. Correct. Yeah.
Got it.
Better way to clarify that.
We're doing a giveaway this week with W Hunting Supply. Leave us a review on iTunes. Take a screenshot. Private message it to us on Instagram, Facebook, or email at info@bear-hunting.com to be registered to win a t-shirt and a $25 gift card to W Hunting Supply. If you participate in last week's contest, you're in the contest for this week. So check out our buddies at W Hunting Supply for a chance to win just by rating our podcast and leaving a review.
But that was the hunt where I learned to quarter and pack an animal. That trip. Because there's no, how it is.
Can't drive a four-wheeler up there.
You can't drive a four-wheeler up there. You're certainly not dragging it to a road.
Yeah.
There's no road. It's tundra.
Yeah.
So it was that hunt, and it was the camp host was there. It was a woman named Beth, and she was just this hard woman from Maine. She was awesome. and she's like, if you get one and you need help and you want to see how to pack it, just call me or radio camp, and I'll come over on the boat and I'll help you. And I was like, okay. And she shows up in her loose rubber knee boots on this totally unstable terrain that I'd never hike and worried about breaking my ankles. She just shows up with her Leatherman tool and just breaks this caribou down. I was like, this is going to change my life. and it literally did.
And you married her.
I didn't. She was.
I thought that's where this was going. I thought that was his wife. No.
My wife's from Vermont. She's helped me carry meat before, but she's never come with. But it was that.
Okay, so just the idea that you could kill an animal in the backcountry and transport it out.
Yes.
So that was novel.
Totally.
Yeah, I get it.
And that just kind of changed how I viewed where I could go and what I could do. And I've always I've been a backpacking guide. I'm used into mountaineering. I've climbed a bunch of big mountains, and I've been in wilderness. Right, I'm comfortable in wilderness. Living on the kayak, on the trail. So I'm used to backpacking. But backpacking with a weapon, kind of was never really in my head. I'm not seeing animals, but like I wasn't thinking, man, I can get in there and hunt these animals.
Right.
And it was kind of that trip and I was, mid-20s when that happened. And I was like, maybe late 20s. I have to go back and do the math. But anyway, not very, pretty young and fit. And that this kind of mentality of, man, I don't have to worry about people. I don't have to worry about roads. I don't have to worry. I can get where game is wild and acts wild and unpressured, and not worry about, how am I getting the meat out? And the physical aspect of it, because I'm all about, collecting memories as much as anything, but combining things, in a lot like mountain hunting is like combining mountaineering with hunting. Some of the places I get into to hunt, it's like I'm going by rock bands that would be awesome rock climbing, but I'm still in there, hunting.
Have you ever done a kayak based backcountry hunt?
Fishing, yes, multi-day, like backcountry fly fishing trips, but not hunting. It's on my to-do list to find some of the right spots to get in. There's some awesome spots you can even access for shed hunting and stuff that you can get into, in spring, and doesn't have to be, just to scout and see some of the property. But I haven't. I've kayak hunted, and I've brought out game with kayaks, but never.
But not like a trip,
right?
Yeah.
Not like.
Yeah, I just wondered if you had.
Yeah, no. But it was that. Like I moved to where I live in Tennessee. There's a lot of canyon country there. And one of the reasons it's such a great whitewater kayaking hub is because there's the Cumberland Plateau and just drainages all over.
Oh, really? They're coming off of the Cumberland Plateau.
And it's just there's just a shifting terrain, and everywhere that dramatic shift of a few thousand feet happens, there's incredible whitewater.
I'll be darned.
So it's that part of the Southern Appalachians and eastern side of Tennessee is it's whitewater, heaven.
Yeah.
So when there's water, because a lot of those rivers will dry up and stuff. But moving there, there's some of this just rougher country, and we're kind of surrounded by like a ring of massive thousands of acres of public land. It's like just giant halo, and we're kind of in the middle. And I was like, who's hunting? Like, how about hunting over here? How about hunting over here? And it's steep terrain. But like one of the locals was like, nobody hunts in there. Deer just get old and die in there. You can't get them out. That was his exact line. Deer get old and die in there. You can't get them out. And I said, okay, that's all I need to know.
Yeah.
Because he's like, you can't get an ATV in. There's no roads. I'm like, keep talking.
Yeah.
Keep talking.
And you're like, yeah, you can't get them out. I wouldn't let anybody go in there.
Right. I started exploring it. And not just it. I mean, it's just, you name it. I mean, the halo, a lot of that halo. And like one of my kind of core spots that I love to hunt, I've never seen a human. And I'm never more than a mile and a half from a road, I don't think.
Yeah.
But it's steep. I mean, there's a lot of vertical up and down involved, and you might have to have waders with you to cross a river, if it's running or not. And there's, it's effort to get in.
And you're whitetail hunting. There's not a lot of bear back in there where you're at.
There's a few. You can't hunt them in that zone. In Tennessee, you can hunt bear along the east side of the Smokies.
Right.
But the counties we're in, there's no bear hunting. But there's some sporadic. There's a couple that live. There's a couple ag sites bordering some of this public, and that's where those bears that I know of or I've heard of, even from the game wardens, tell me that's where they tend to hang out.
Yeah.
But you get into this canyon country and the habitat, and you see it, and you're just like, dude, I can't believe knowing the bear numbers that exist, over on the east side of the state against.
It doesn't
the
make any
Smokies.
sense to me why there's not a lot of bear
Exactly.
there.
I'm like, well, this place should be covered up. And every year one is hit on I-40 near where I live, so they're there. They're just
more
not
than they think.
Yeah, they're not in the numbers.
So when you're hunting back in there, are you doing day trips or are you going back in and camping and staying?
Both.
Both.
So
what do you find to be most effective? Because I think we hunt similar ways in that I like getting back away from roads as much as possible.
Yep.
I have yet to, and I think I have an idea for the size of areas you're talking about. Like, it's not like the Western U.S. where you can get back 12 miles from a road or something.
Correct.
Yeah, it's just not. In the East, you just
Yeah.
don't find that. So my thing is I'm trying to decide, and I have a theory of what's more effective for killing game.
Yep.
Going back in and staying for 3 days, but you having to carry all your pack stuff in, being locked down to one place, or do you go on day trips into
Yep.
the wilderness and be more mobile? Because you
Yep.
can get a pretty long ways and hunt a pretty good day
Right.
in a day.
Yeah, especially if you're willing to go in and out in the dark, and you just,
Yep.
you're like, I'm in here all day. And I'm
Yep.
like, there's one of the spots I hunt, I get up at 3:30. It's 2 hours at least, sun will come up around 6. I'll hike in the whole way in the dark. And the sun will come up around 6. And I'll find a nice sunny rock shelf to sleep on. If I'm tired midday, and then I'm there for.
Do you see, like, on an average hunt like that, how many deer would you see in a day?
Anywhere from 0 to 10.
Okay.
There's plenty of hunts where I don't see a deer.
Yep.
There's just not a lot. The places that I hunt has excellent, called buck to doe ratios and age structures, but not high density.
Yeah.
But I know in there at any given time, certainly during November, and I don't even go into those places until then.
Right.
I don't go in. I have my.
It's not like you're going in there scouting and doing a bunch of stuff.
No. I've been in there late enough season. I know where the sign is. It's there every year. I don't need to go see it. I don't have cameras running.
Yeah.
I know the sign. I know and I'm fun. A lot of my hunting is I'm hunting with the terrain. I'm hunting funnels. I'm hunting what the terrain is giving me.
Well, okay. What would you say now? The mountains over there are different than our mountains in some ways. Can you describe the terrain features that you're hunting?
Sure. So basically, in searching phase for whitetails, I'm hunting ridge tops because a lot of those bucks will run ridge tops, brows, spines, in and out of steep country. And
those mountains have a lot of like super steep hollows, but kind of hogback ridges.
Correct.
Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So, cliff bands that I know I got 40 or 20 to 80 foot high cliff bands, that run for the next 500 yards or more. And then there's a funnel. That's a good spot.
Yeah. They're going to come down
that's their way in and out of there. If they're there, they're coming in and out. They're going to run the top of that cliff or the bottom of that cliff until they hit, and they're going to run this funnel. So I seek out spots like that where I can get my wind right. And I will move all day long if the wind changes. I don't care. I will not I can't make noise. I embrace the other side of the equation. I make noise. I just try to sound like a deer.
Yeah.
I shorten my steps. I shuffle. I grunt when I run. I will run and grunt like a running buck to shift my position. And I found it works great. And I've sat down and shot a deer 10 minutes later.
Wow. That's a good tip.
So I've the way that I rattle and call, I hunt I try to be a deer when I hunt in there. Because I think a lot of people get really frustrated, like can't move, you have to can't make any noise. And I was like, I don't know about you, but I hear most of the deer that I kill before I see them. Just because I'm hunting typically thicker, can't see very far, but like thick leaves, dry. Like you hear that buck crunching from a long way away, especially when he's jogging. So I'm like, if I want to shift my 150 yards to get my wind right, I shuffle. I'll scratch like a turkey and just kind of work my way over there.
Yeah.
And now my wind's good. And when I rattle, and so I killed 3 bucks this year, 1 in Georgia, 2 in Tennessee. I called all 3 in on the ground, not in a stand. I shot them all within 20 yards, coming to me.
That's awesome. What time of year? November?
Early November.
Really?
Yeah. And that's what I find be most effective. But like when I rattle, I'll run around in a 10-yard circle, stomping, kicking the ground, breaking sticks. I don't just sit there.
So all 3 of those bucks you called in, they were coming. So you were, and therein lies the challenge in low deer density areas is being within earshot of a deer. You can rattle. You can have the best rattle sequence in the world, and if a deer can't hear you, he's not going to come to you.
Correct.
So you're close to a bedding area.
Yeah. So I'm thinking. So I'm like in one of these spots where I shot the last one, and Jaeger actually helped me find that deer. I'm literally sitting on a bedding knoll. It's a southwest facing knoll with scrapes and beds and rubs on it. I am in it.
Yeah.
I get in there before they're in the morning, and I'm sitting where they're coming or where they're going to scout by.
Yeah.
And, I'm wasting my time there probably doing that in December. And early October even. But in November, that's one of the spots they like to be. So a lot of that, too, I think, is hunting those is figuring out, early food sources, rut chaos, late season food sources. And
what are those deer doing in the late winter in the mountains?
The ones near me, like they're down, they're grouping back up. They're heading the thick bedding near late season food. There's one.
Well, what is late? There's my question.
Like for where I'm at, there's just one old overgrown briar patch that I've just climbed trees after I'm tagged out and just sit there and watch. And I'll spot 6, 8 deer, just white throats. I can't see their body. I just see their heads and white throats feeding that stuff. So like last year, but last year I didn't punch a tag in Tennessee except for on a doe. I didn't kill a buck last year. I had some chances, just didn't come together. This year though, they came in and in Georgia, it's funny. I was hunting with a friend down in Telfair County along the Yuck-Mulgee River in the swamps, and he wasn't calling. And same nights, same areas, he wasn't seeing bucks, and I was seeing 5 a night, 5 a sit, rattling, every half hour. But it was that peak time when they're like, it's early November, or they're not
you rifle hunt during that time?
Yep.
Oh, really?
So like the buck I shot down there, he came in straight downwind behind me, shot him right in his chest, coming right at me. I just heard a crunch, turned around, legal.
Yeah.
Shooter, like I'm gonna shoot that. If one of those. Well, let me look at him a little bit, and it's just mature buck, boom.
Yeah.
That fast.
Yeah.
Same thing. The first buck I shot in Tennessee this year, it wasn't a spot far from my house, and I just had I'd been traveling a lot of trade shows. I've done the Orvis Game Fair and Kevin's Catalog Game Fair and Georgia and Alabama. That's when I actually hunted in Georgia in between those shows. And then I was like, man, it's the first week of November, and this is that's the prime time for me in Tennessee is first 2 weeks in November. There's just a lot of bucks moving, and they're aggressive to me. You can interact with them. And I just got home, and I was like, man, I got to get out for the last hour and a half of the day. I don't care if that's all it is. And I literally hiked into a dead tree, just dropped my backpack, got out my antlers, and it's right on the edge of where I know deer like to bed. Just kind of got in there quiet, and 4 o'clock, and just started banging and breaking, and he just walked straight out of that bedding cover.
Just right away within 30 seconds?
10 minutes of hunting.
Okay.
He just got up. He heard commotion. He didn't want to be near him, and he just got up and walked out of that stuff and just was head down and puffing, and he just comes and he just laid down and died. And I was like, well, that worked out.
Wow. That's good hunting, man. That's good hunting. It really is.
And then the third one was the one I talked about with those Southern Outdoorsman guys. It covers some of this stuff on a podcast with them. They that bedding spot I'm talking about that I get into, try to get into before they get back there in daylight. I slept in like a half an hour too long, and it was getting light when I got there. And to get there, I got to go down this face, cross a river, up a face. And there's an easier way there, but I take this really convoluted way, so I don't bother where they kind of mill in the night, and I always keep my wind right because the wind switches there around 9. And anyway, so I go in this really obscure, hard way to get where I want to get, and it's a rock next to a tree. And when I sit with my body on the ground behind the rock, my whole body is blocked from their vision of this bowl and funnel. And my head can see around that rock, and I have a great view. And then when something comes, I can just lay on the rock and shoot off.
That's nice.
And I've had deer there and walk within 5 yards of me up by the rock, and they just come up and they just like this bedding spot.
Yeah.
So you always hear like stay out of a bedding area. I don't subscribe to that theory all the time, and certainly not in the big open woods on those open knolls.
Yeah.
It's one thing keeping my scent out of dense thickets that they bed in, but big open woods that just happen to like a sunny bench, I don't have any problem with it.
Yeah. Well, that's
so, but like that morning, I got there, and right when I was getting to my rock, like there was 2 deer getting spooked, and I was like, damn it, I slept in half an hour, and I'm too late, and I was kicking myself. And then I hit a rattling session, and they broke, and then I saw a beautiful buck, and he was heading away, and I started grunting and bleeding and rattling, and he turned around, he starts walking, and I just flat out missed him. I missed him. And I should have waited because he was coming, but I had it's a lot of trees and little tiny shooting pockets,
right.
muzzle loader, and he was at 80 yards, and I thought I had a window, and I don't know what happened, but I missed him. I mean, I waited, I sat there for an hour, I got down, I was looking for hair, blood, just nothing. And the way he just walked off too. He didn't run. He just kind of, and he's kind of. I was trying to reload, and I was like, what the heck? And I was just kicking myself. I was like, man, you're late, and you suck, and now you missed, and you're just a terrible hunter, and I was just like pouting. And I just got like my antlers out again, and like half hour later, and did a big sesh, and ran around kicking stumps and trees and breaking, and I hear, like I'm talking about, there's a ridge down below me, and I hear the footsteps long before I see the deer, and he's trot. And I could tell he wasn't going to come up to the bedding area. He was going to cross his face. So I got up, and I like kind of jogged 20 yards while he's jogging. I mean, he can't hear me while he's making noise. So I moved. I'm like, I will move to get to that shot when I know he's moving.
Yeah.
Again, he's not going to hear me when he's trotting. And if he does, he's probably going to stop within, by the time he can see me, I can see him.
Yeah.
And I got over there, and he's coming up his face at me. Again, 20 yards, and he's coming up, kind of quartering to, and I shot, and he runs like 20 feet maybe and stops. He's behind a rock and a tree, and I'm standing here. He's standing there. I know he's there. He knows I'm there. I tried to reload quick, took one step, and he just bolts, flag up, like strong, like nothing had happened. And I was like, man, alive, did I just miss again? Is like something wrong with my muzzle loader? I was like,
right.
Just starting, what the heck? And then I walked down to where I thought I'd shot him, and I see white hair and just like black pudding. It's like, and I was like, what the heck? And I was like, oh man, I shot him in the liver. And it was just like amazing. It was just like macerated liver. I could tell it had exited belly, and now I know I had spooked. I mean, that's all transpired, and there's no like it's backing out. I mean, he's standing there, I'm standing there. There was no like wait half an hour and slip out.
Yeah.
Like, in the course of 2.5 minutes. I mean, we're standing on top of each other, so I actually, I went and got Jaeger for that one. Spooked deer. You never want to bump a deer, regardless tracking. And spooked deer can go a long way. And number one rule of like tracking and recovery is if don't bump it out of its first bed.
Yeah.
Your odds of recovery go way off, even with a dog. Just a lot more factors become involved. So I'm telling myself the same thing I always tell the hunters when they call me about tracking. How long did you wait? Like, did you bump the deer? And like the answers were, I couldn't have waited. There was no, I could wait. And I did bump it. I mean, it was standing there. It wasn't bedded. But bottom line is, it was shot. Then a few minutes later, it was spooked and running hard away. And that deer could have gone. That deer could have gone a mile.
Yeah.
So I did this big 2.5 mile hike out, loop, try to give it as much space as I could, not spook it again. I waited another hour, and then I kind of did this hike out. Got home. Do you know Ethan Rodriguez, Stickbow Chronicles? Yeah. Another traditional bow hunter. Anyway, he lives near me, and I called Ethan. I said, "Hey, man, shot a buck, liver shot it. I'm nervous, and quality deer. Again, not just obviously there wasn't. It was just coming. I was like, okay, shooter for sure. I'll shoot that. So he's like, yeah, I'll come help you. And he knows Jaeger. He's helped me go on some tracks with Jaeger, and Jaeger likes him a lot. So we hiked all the way back in and put Jaeger on that track, and the blood it was all dry by then, and it had turned. It's actually my first time seeing what incredibly fresh liver blood looks like versus a few hours later. Usually I always see it at later.
Right.
I'd never seen, in my 30 years of hunting, I'd never seen the fresh blood like that. Of just what it looked like. It was kind of like, I even texted some photos to other trackers, like, this is different for me. Again, I've shot a lot of it just was different. And I'm always studying everything. So put Jaeger on it, and boom, up over off the ridge, down his face, boom, there's the buck.
How far did you run?
250 yards maybe.
Wasn't that far.
Yeah, it wasn't that far. But he was still limber, 6 hours later.
So he laid there for a while.
He had just died. I mean, there was no problem twisting him for photo. He was not stiff at all.
Yeah.
I mean, he had just died.
But that's a good place to jump into the dog.
Yep.
I mean, what did how cold a trail can he trail? And part of my worldview with the olfactory strength of a dog comes from hound hunting.
Yep.
I mean, we share an interest connected in some ways because I hunt plot hounds, which are originally German, came from Germany, but the breed was really developed in North Carolina.
Yep.
And in the Southern Appalachians was kind of where it started. But so you hear guys talk about bear dog men. Mm-hmm. There's everybody will tell you something different. Some guys will tell you you're a liar if you say that your bear dog can start a 10-hour-old track.
Right.
At the same time, you'll hear guys out west that are hunting lines in snow. Their dogs are running tracks that are well over 24 hours old, even 2 days old. Yep. But very different conditions. Yep. I mean, people don't realize how much tracking conditions matter, species matter, scent inputs matter.
But for deer, 20-hour-old tracks are, I don't even blink. That's
really?
That's normal.
He wouldn't have trouble with that.
Even the field tests that exist are all 20-hour.
Is that right?
The Deutsche Teckel Club, the tracking test he had to take to be a stud, 20-hour-old, kilometer long, aged overnight, and range in game heavy areas. And then in the United States, we have a group called United Blood Trackers. Mm-hmm. They have tests that they do, and UBT2 test is 20 hours, almost. It's 800 meters or whatever, almost a mile. Same thing, aged overnight, laid the day before, and that's just what it is.
So so 20 hours old. What about 30 hours old?
I'd take it.
Yeah. How do you think his nose compares to a top-notch cold-nose hound? Is it better?
I think so, just because I've witnessed him out track in tests like coonhounds and bloodhounds.
Okay.
But I can't speak for all of them.
Yeah.
And certainly there's, people get into better dog at this and that. I mean, Dachshunds are known for their noses. They have a personality that also makes them good at tracking. But I mean, I think them into the 48-hour tracks and stuff. That's where bloodhounds start separating themselves. They track, and their style for him for sure. Their styles are just totally different. You see a bloodhound track, and it's almost like you're watching a dog sleepwalk. It's just really slow and lumbering, methodical.
Yeah,
he's like,
he's
trying to go.
That's the way a hound would trail. I mean, if you took one of my plots and trained it to be a blood dog, which you could.
Yeah, totally.
It would. It'd be pulling on your lead, trying to pull you over.
Yeah, And people have saying they're ages the tracks more. Training lines, he'll slow him down. I've tried, and I've just learned to adapt to his style.
Yeah, just go with it.
And I can physically keep up. So maybe I shouldn't. I don't claim to be a great dog trainer or handler, or I just know he blows my mind with what he does.
Yeah.
And he's good. And
inside the
it tests in real life.
Yeah.
inside the hound world, and this is something that I've written about probably more than I've actually witnessed personally, but we do this legendary bear hound series.
Yep.
And most of these dogs that these guys are considering legendary bear dogs are what they call in some places good trail dogs or good start dogs. Which so in a pack of dogs that are all bred for big game hunting and bear hunting, even the best lines in the world, there's going to be one that's way better than the other ones.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure it's the same way with Teckels.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Yeah.
And so I guess that's what, and there's no answer, but like you take one of these really good, like bona fide trail dogs. I just wonder how his nose would be. Because, and here's another thing, and you may know the answer to this. Like I look at, like I have tree and cur squirrel dogs. Mm-hmm. Their noses are about that long. Yeah. I mean, like literally, I've got my hands put out about 3 inches.
Right.
You know, scent is distinguished by nasal mucosa,
surface
olfactory,
area,
turbinates. I think they call the flat. Like Colby, when you look at a dried deer skull that's been cleaned by dermestide beetles, the little paper thin flakes up in the nasal cavity, those are called turbinates.
Oh, okay.
That's what I've just recently learned.
Yeah,
those are covered in the nasal mucosa, which is basically skin. The more of that you have, the more scent you can retain. That's why a bear, he has more surface area, turbinate surface area, than almost any other mammal of his size.
Yeah.
This dog has a huge head. That's where I was. You know where I was going with that.
Look at the size
so
of that
most dachshunds when I say that's probably the wrong way. Most little dogs have little heads. He has a head as big as my plots.
Right. So he's built. Again, the way they use these dogs, he's built to go in to the fox den and hold that fox or kill that fox until the hunter digs him out.
Yeah.
They're hunters. I mean, and the way he hunts, his hunting style, it's you're hunting with me, I'm not hunting with you. I'm gonna go hunt.
So they're not like obedience trained. I mean, I know you're
He's not. Like I'm not. Again, like sit, stay, maybe. Certainly, there's no recall. And again, I don't never claim to be a great dog trainer, but instinctively, they're just hunters to their core. The instinct to find it. And the prey drive is what makes them so good, and the ability to concentrate.
They want to catch it.
He wants to find it. Every core of ounce of his body is built. I'm going to find it. And you may be there at the end or not, but I'm going to find it.
I like that.
Nice.
And that's really, I think, what when a dog like this, it was really funny. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Wild Rose Kennels, UK gun dogs. They bring in and breed British Labradors, and he literally wrote the dog training book with Orvis, Mike Stewart, great guy. I went down to their adventure dog rendezvous. They do this event because they train really how their dogs are like robots for waterfowl, but they also have a lot of people who want them, take them hiking, take them kayaking. So they even have like training programs just for adventure dogs, and they have to pick up water bottles. Instead of a duck, they're trained to pick up water bottles, and they're trained to be calm on a kayak and different things, and trained hiking, to sit and stay and recall over a bridge and things. Anyway, we were down there kind of joining them. So he's obviously not a lab. He's not nowhere near wired like a lab in the way he operates or thinks or anything. We were all on this hiking trip, and we were like 20 dogs and handlers in a line going by this lake. And a deer jumps up from the edge of the lake that was bedded and runs through the line of dogs and handlers. And everybody told their labs, sit, stay, and they all just locked in at their left heel and sat. Jaeger lost his mind, and he was like, "Let me go," and barking, and I'm trying to just restrain him. He's somewhat okay until we cut the scent line, and then he just was like. And I was getting kind of some stink eye from some of the other people that don't, work their dog.
And you're like, this is his job.
And I'm like, I'm not going to scold him for this.
Right.
I am not, I'm going to correct him a little bit, but ultimately, this is what he's for.
Yeah,
I don't want him tracking live deer. I want him tracking dead deer. So I kind of calibrated a little bit, but I'm not going to like yank them off and try to give this big correction, because, and even some of the trainers that hunt pulled me aside later and they were like, you did the right thing. He's not like, that's not what you have him for. So
are there people breeding these dogs? And I mean, I guess there are. You got this dog. I mean, where did you?
Yeah,
you don't have to give away.
No, he's from Vom Mountain Creek. Is the breeder. He breeds Deutschrothars and Rawhar Teckels to the German standards. There's only, aside from Vom Mountain Creek and there's a breeder in Quebec, Louise LeBranche. That's the only true Teckel breeders that I know.
Are you gonna breed him?
Now that he's passed all the trials and as a registered stud, the plan is next summer.
Get a female?
Or
you're going to breed him to a
Vom
female?
Mountain Creek has an unrelated female to Jaeger. So usually he sends his females
Are these
back.
breeders really protective of their stock? Do they make you like sign a contract that you won't breed the dog?
It's such a small community. It's kind of trust.
Yeah.
Breeding dogs outside of the standards does nobody any good.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Teckels are not at a state like Drossar where they're recognized by NAVDA or anything like that, like as a versatile breed. So I
What
think
is NAVDA?
North American Versatile Hunting Dog Association.
Got it.
So they're the ones who have like the NAVDA test and the trials for a lot of the DDs, Deutschrothars, and I don't know if Plots are in there or not, but a lot of the, let's say, obscure European breeds, the field hunting breeds,
Right.
but they don't recognize Teckels as separate. But that description of Deutschrothars are in a different registry. They will not breed until they pass certain field standards. So even though like he may breed a dog and they're going to have 5 puppies, they're going to all be Teckels, true Teckels, but none of those dogs will breed until they've passed these field standards.
Yep, that makes sense.
So it's how they keep the hunting in them. It's how if they don't prove they have these traits, they're not going to pass that on. They might be great dogs, and they might be good at tracking and not good at waterfowl. But they have set a standard, and both if he was missing teeth or had crooked teeth, he wouldn't be able to
Is that
breed.
right?
Yeah. So it's not just performance; it's physical too.
Yeah. Does he bark on the track?
He will. It's called. You heard the terms loud. Will he loud or will he vocalize? There's some other terms, and I hadn't paid much attention to it. He certainly. It wasn't until
He's
it was pointed
not like
out.
a hound, though. I mean, like.
Well, here's the thing. I didn't start thinking about it until it was pointed out to me. So one of the videos, I have some videos tracking on my personal YouTube channel, and Mike saw his breeder saw it and said, "Oh, when does he?" There's a test in Germany actually called Spurlot where they test their vocalization because they're running boar with them, they're running rabbits, they're running fox.
So they want him to bark on track.
Yeah, because they're keeping tabs of the dog, and you can even tell what's going on by the pitch and tone of the bark.
Sure, just like hound hunting.
Yeah. So he says, "Oh, when does he?" Because he saw one of the videos, and I was like, "I haven't thought about it." He says, "Well, his mother, if she'll only loud once there's a deer within 50 yards." With him, I've now learned if I'm restraining him too much on a track where we're on the line, that's one way I can tell that he's on the line. If I restrain him and he just kind of gives up and starts walking around, looking around, I'm like, he's hunting the line. He's not on the line. If I restrain him and he's pulling and starts whining and like frustrated, he's on the line. Let's go. Certainly it's a way I can tell a live deer too. Like if we're on a track and all the signs are, you didn't kill this deer, and he starts getting vocal, I'm like, we're pushing the live deer now.
I see. How many, so he's 2.5 years old. There's only so many falls that he's been mature. How many critters has he recovered? Do you know?
I don't. I haven't kept good records. So as a puppy, and some guys really take a lot of tracks and they keep really intricate records. I have not gone down that path because I hadn't at the time to just openly track a lot. But like as a puppy, his first season, he was 4 months old. My main goal was just like, I just want you to experience being a hunting dog. I just want you to smell things and be up late at night around strange people, strange places, other dogs. And so I just traveled and hunted. But he got to smell, that season, he got to smell whitetail, wild boar, mule deer, and antelope.
Yeah.
And they were all just practice lines, animals that I'd shot. I knew they were dead.
Okay,
or
so
my
you
father
just took
shot
him
them, my
out.
friend shot them.
Yeah.
And just say, okay, start, finish. So he got probably exposed to, I don't know, half a dozen animals that first season as a puppy. And then the second season was the first season I started taking calls from the public.
Yeah.
And I bet we did a dozen tracks that year. And they were all either recoveries or the 3 week later I got them on game camera.
Yeah.
Like
Just
confirmation.
just
Every one
deer
of them.
didn't die.
Or I called it at a property line we couldn't cross, and then 3 days later he got permission, and he's like, the deer was where Jaeger said it was. It was 50 yards over that line. So it was nice having like closure on all those.
Yeah.
This year was the season where I got a little more loose, I should say, with like who would I track for and take calls. And regret and don't regret that. Because I learned I'd say this was the season of me learning to screen calls better. Who to track for. I took some tracks for friends that were just courtesy tracks. Close by, hey, I shot it in the shoulder. Can you bring Jaeger? I'm like, sure. Go over there and, 100 yards in, 200 yards in, we find an area with this much blood, it continues on. He's barking his brains out. I'm like, this is not a dead deer.
Yeah.
And then same thing 3 weeks later. Oh yeah, I saw the buck. He's got a scar on his shoulder. I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
And on Tennessee, it's all recovery. We're on lead state. You can't run deer with dogs. In Alabama, that deer probably would have gotten killed because you can run off lead there and they can bay the deer and then shoot it again.
Yeah.
We can't do that in Tennessee.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much it makes it's always a recovery effort or no effort.
I see.
But there were tracks. Again, it was one of the good example. It's a beautiful buck. Hunter, never been 8.5 years old, never been seen in daylight until he shot it. Just gorgeous, huge mountain buck. And was pretty sure he brisket shot it, all kind of fat in the blood at the hit site. And I knew that going in, and I was like, this is, with the quality of this deer, I'll come down and we'll get on.
How far did you have to drive?
It was about 2 hours for that one.
Really? See,
Yeah.
that's a big deal.
And so they tracked it on 150 yards and lost it in this pine thicket. And Jaeger hit their point of loss, and then just I always tell hunters, mark your point of loss and then mark your trail out, because oftentimes people don't realize that when you're grid searching, when you hike out, you have stuff on you now have deer scent and blood on your boots you don't even know about. So when you leave, dogs will often get a little confused by that, and they'll check it quick and then come back. Good ones will.
Yeah.
But it's always better that I know. It's just easier. Like if I see Jaeger break off suddenly on an odd line that he shouldn't, I'm like, that's weird. That's usually the hunter's trail.
I see.
So the more information I get ahead of time. So same thing. Anyway, he gets to there. He's like, boop, boop. Then he just keeps going. And I'm like, okay, pass your point of loss. Boom, boom. We're about probably 500 yards in, and there was just this like southern sandy soil ATV trail through a pine thicket. And there was like a speck of blood about this big, just a drop kind of over a pine needle. And I was like, he's on your deer. And the hunter was like, holy crap. How'd you see that? And he's like, I can't believe we haven't seen anything for a while. And he's been doing this like up and down and around. And I'm like, yeah, he's on your deer. And then we go into this just crazy cut down stumps, briars, just, thick, overgrown, clear cut. And he's bleeding heavily at this point on his own. His tongue's out a lot. He cuts it all the time. If you watch some videos, you'll see these goggles.
Yeah, he
on
wears
his
those
face.
rec specs.
Yeah, you have to look at the scratches all over him later. But like he had received a couple eye injuries because he's running through briars. I've seen him run through barbed wire. But he's just charging, and he gets into this old clear cut, and I start seeing blood, and I can't tell if it's his blood.
Oh, I see.
Or deer blood. So I pick him up, and he's losing his mind. And then I'm like, I go a little further, and I'm like, okay, that's fresh blood. It's not Jaeger's. So I'm like, I think we just bumped your deer out of this bedding. This just gnarly of gnarly. Worked our way through it, and then continued about another 2 miles, over ridges, off cliff faces, through gullies, across a creek, up a face. And, we're 2 miles in at this point, 30 hours after he shot it. Just seeing a drip. Finally sat down and just literally watched the drop of blood dry on a leaf on a rock. I'm just sitting there with Jaeger. He's panning and he's bleeding from all orifices. I mean, he was bleeding from his nose, his ears, his tongue, his claws.
And you have him leashed.
And he's leashed. And he's just hunting. He's just I want to get this. He killed himself going after that deer. But I'm like, your deer's not dead.
Yeah.
It's 30 hours in. He's going up and down super gnarly terrain. We found one bed in that whole 2.5 miles.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I feel bad for him. But the hunter was even he left knowing he knew his deer was alive.
And that's a good feeling inside of a hunting.
And to me, that's a successful track.
Yes.
There's no recovery at the end of that. But there is no doubt in that hunter's mind that the deer I shot, he may have died a week later. But at 30 hours in, he's as strong could be. He was always going to be 5-10 minutes in front of us, no matter what we did.
Yeah.
So
did they ever get pictures of the deer?
I still haven't heard back.
Yeah. Was that was this fall?
That was this fall. Yeah. Because I really hope he sees it again. A deer that old may just die anyway from the stress of the whole ordeal. But or who knows? Another hunter could have got him, or you never know. It's always great having closure on non-recoveries, but no fault. I mean, he had bloody stools for 4 days after that track. I mean, he just gave everything.
He gave it all.
He gave it all, and he would have never stopped. So that's part of my responsibility as a handler, is to judge when it's just time to say, okay, Jaeger, you've had enough.
Yeah. Do you? There's a blood trailer that I know in Arkansas that I used one time. He's actually a pretty good friend of mine, and he just has random breeds of dogs. That he just gets one that he thinks would be a good blood trailing dog. But
there's plenty of great ones that have no,
right,
rare pedigree like Jaeger has. They're awesome trailing dogs.
So he's a big hunter, obviously. That's why he got the dog.
Yeah.
And he told me that he got to where, when his phone rang, he was so excited, hoping that it was a stranger that needed help tracking a deer.
Yeah,
he even liked it more than hunting.
Yeah,
which that was surprising me, because when I called him at 7:00 at night on late in the fall, and dude, I need your help. To me, it was like a burden.
Right.
And it was. He did have to travel, and but he was excited. Where are you at on that spectrum?
Mix.
Okay.
Again, this was a season of learning. You know what? It's okay to say no.
Yeah.
Because Jaeger was getting beat up, and I was like, okay, I need to back off. It's not fair to him. He's also, just because he's now, again, he's such a rare stud as far as Teckel registries go. I hate to have him get really hurt, or he rip his damn nuts off on a pierced barbed wire. I don't know what's going to happen out there. We took a track once, and there was jagged, rusty metal up out of the ground that he ran across with his chest. I mean, bad stuff happens to tracking dogs.
He could get hurt.
They get gored. They get hurt. So
he's valuable to you now.
He is. So I'm going to calibrate that, right? I'm not chasing numbers. I'm not trying to, only feel successful if I get 50 tracks.
Well, it's a ton of work. That's what I learned from my buddy.
To me, it's 6 hours minimum from where I live usually to get to a track, do the track, get home.
Yeah.
So I just don't have that free time either. If it's convenient, I'll come help. If it's a friend, I'll come help.
Now, did you originally get the dog thinking that you would just use it for yourself?
Yeah, it was
just hey, we need you probably were like, it'd be fun to have a dog like this. It'd be fun to kind of have a pet that but it would also be a blood trailing dog. It wasn't just like I shoot so many deer that I don't find I need a dog.
Yeah,
that's not what it was.
I don't kill that many. Again, last year I shot a deer. This year I shot 3. I shot 4. I shot a doe, so 4. I'm not killing a ton of deer.
It was kind of the holistic picture.
Yeah, I'm mainly a big game hunter. I wanted a hunting dog that contributed to my hunting style.
Yeah.
And that could help with. So, and I wanted we travel a lot. We already had one dachshund. I like their personality, their independence, their stubbornness. I happen to like. Some people can't stand it. I personally can't stand a border collie that brings a tennis ball to my feet and just stares at me until I pick it up. That drives me crazy. Some people love that. That's their.
Hey, on our podcast. We pick on things that we don't like. So we pick on tennis and golf. We're adding border collies to the list.
Border collies.
You know what?
Thanks, Damon. That was good.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
We don't like border collies either.
Yeah, you know what I mean. That personality of that, like that super. I need to interact with you all the time kind of dog.
I see.
He wants to be on the couch, or I want to be hunting off the back porch, or I want to be hunting. Sometimes I want your attention. Sometimes I like that. I like the independence of it that they display as a personality. Some people don't. Everybody's got their own, likes and desires in this world, and that's great. So he just fit what we want. I'm in a fishing kayak a lot. He can get in a kayak, and I can waterfowl hunt with a small dog.
Has anybody told you that they think you look like this dog?
I have heard that. Yeah, he's got the cooler beard though.
Okay. That's not what I was saying, but you know how people say that you look like your dog?
Totally.
I don't know. I'm not making any judgments.
If
he had those rec specs on, though, he might.
Yeah, he might. So yeah, he's been this season. I haven't done a ton of as many videos. I videoed that liver shot buck that helped me recover. We had a great recovery to start the season off that I recorded. It was probably the most. This is on our YouTube channel, or my YouTube channel, ours. He's got his own website now, that we can go into that later. But got a call October, woman, Christy. Hi, Christy, if you're listening. She shot a crossbow buck. It's certainly one of the more interesting, the details you start getting into, because a lot of tracking is the questions you ask at the very beginning on the phone before you ever decide. And I was like, where'd you shoot it from? She's like, I have a tractor. I was like, is that? And she's like, oh, we have a broken down tractor on our property, and we, instead of sitting in a box blind, we sit in the cab. I'm like,
right on.
Okay, that works.
That works. I'm sure the deer aren't scared of it. I think it's great. And then she's like, yeah, I shot it. It got out, or I shot it. I saw it bed. And then our dog got out of the yard, our shepherd, and jumped it. And I'm just like, where's this going? And then she's like, yeah. So then I had my son and some of his friends come over, and we tracked it under the mountain across the street. And I'm like, and how many human footsteps and scents are on scene? She's like, well, it's 3 last night. And then, a few more came this morning, and we all looked again, and I was like, oh boy,
this is complicated now.
This is like. So I was like, oh well, and I was like, but I was like, you're confident? She's like, I got shot at and never shot at it. I'm pretty sure. I'm like, you're confident?
So you feel like the deer's dead?
So I'm like, you're confident? Then this deer's dead. She's like, I really think it's dead. I was like, okay, I'll come down. But almost 2-hour drive. Go down, and this is like we're right again. It's like,
do you know this person?
No, total stranger.
It's a stranger.
Yeah.
They called you. How'd they get your number?
United Blood Trackers website, and asking around. She called somebody who knew the vet that treats you.
Is it a big deer?
Yeah. So nice, mint buck.
Yeah.
So she found us, and it was a referral too. It turns out 2 directions. Another tracker in Tennessee who had gotten a call and knew we were closer and referred the call.
And you're not getting paid for this. It's not like a job. Now, they might give you a tip or something.
Yeah.
Pay for fuel.
What I do, I just ask for donations to Jaeger's vet bills. It's up to them.
Yeah.
And most people, once they see them work, are happy to contribute a little bit.
Yeah.
So, and he has them. I mean, tracking sent him to the vet numerous times. So, anyway, get down there and hit site. I was starting to hit site, and, takes us across this field, and I see where the deer was bedded. It's pretty bedded in a pretty open spot, like behind a barn. And that's really a really good sign. It ran 100 yards and bedded.
Yeah, that's a good sign, isn't it?
Certainly. That I never want jumping one from a bed's a big negative, but bedding within 100 yards, it's a big positive.
Yeah.
And they knew they knew blood where it crossed the road, so I knew everything going to the road would be just letting Jaeger learn the scent of that deer. And then we got up on the other face, and it's kind of got on these rocky bench things, go up 30 yards and have a rocky bench for 10 and big shelves.
So he's going up.
He's going up. And that's one thing tracking, we can get more into that. But one thing tracking teaches you, throw all the freaking wives' tales and stereotypes. They run downhill, they go to water. It's all bunk. They do what they want to do. If there's any one rule, they try to get back. Certainly with whitetail I'm talking about. They do whatever they can to get to their core bedding area. If there's any just let the dog find it, try to, predict. That's the one thing. If I'm going to, it's bedding area. And especially with mature bucks, they're really tight. They got their happy place, and they will do whatever they can to get there.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's going up a face. So get up partially up that face, a few benches, and get to their point of loss. And she was confused. Jaeger's telling me to go over here. So my point of loss is over here. I'm like, well, Jaeger's telling me to go over here. And then after working that out for a while, she's going, no, it was over there. I'm like, okay, yeah. It was where Jaeger said it was.
Yeah.
And then that was their point of loss, and then continued on. At this point, they can't keep up with me, and I'm going up across this rocky bench and see one drop, and now I know I'm on. This is kind of like that's
trail.
like a milestone of any track is
To find blood.
is confirmation after point of loss. Ultimately,
Yeah.
I even view that as I've done my job as a tracker. If I've advanced your line past where you lost it, ultimately I've contributed to this recovery more than you did on your own. So that's kind of that's like the first milestone for me in a track.
Yeah.
And a lot of tracks there is no blood. So, but getting it is great. Okay, now I know I'm on virgin track, not contaminated. Just it's Jaeger in his nose versus this deer. And the deer actually went across this bench. They went back down a few benches, looped around, then did this straight up kind of path. And I was getting up probably when I was 50 yards. You hear me on the video go, I think I smell your buck. And boom, buck.
There he is. What do you think that deer was doing? If he was zigging and zagging, was he? Sometimes when you're blood trailing a deer, I've found there's usually like a straight line for some distance, and then the deer feels like it's. Or this is my interpretation of it. The deer feels like it has escaped the danger that hurt it, and then at that point you'll start to see it do different things. And usually if you see one that starts to zig and zag, I feel like you're about to find a deer, a dead
looking
deer.
for a bedding area.
Like that deer right there that went up benches and made big loops. Like what was he doing?
I think he was getting away once he got up on the benches. Then he was looking for bedding. And I don't know, again, if it wasn't clear, did the dog follow him across the road? How soon were the people? Remember, because this deer got jumped from that first bed.
Yeah.
So I think he was looking for bedding again.
Yeah.
And it was just trying to figure out.
If you could give, based on the knowledge that you've had from tracking game with this dog, for somebody that didn't have a blood trailing dog and was blood trailing deer, what would be the number one tip that you would give somebody for finding a marginally hit animal? If they were just tracking, not with a dog.
Oh, just not with a dog.
Not with a dog. Just based upon what you have been, because you're learning stuff that
you learn more in a season of tracking than you can learn in a lifetime.
Because you're seeing what that game. You
know exactly what it does.
So what would that one tip be?
Like after they've lost it.
Yeah.
Well, certainly get a dog if you can.
Yep.
Number one
The
tip.
one tip can't be get a dog.
Not
It's
your
like
own.
describe birds without saying the word bird.
Yeah, like meaning.
Damon says bird.
Yeah, meaning have somebody's number in your phone. You don't have to have your own dog.
Yeah.
But find one near you if you're in a legalized state where it's allowed, and there's only a few that aren't, like Iowa. West Virginia, I think, is still not in the east, and a couple in the west. But having a plan of that, and then two, unfortunately, a lot of hunters don't know their land good enough to know bedding and feed always, but just know the bedding area. And
They're going to get back to that bedding area.
just think in your head, if I were trying to get back here, how would I do it? After I've been bumped, I mean, you see, deer that get shot. People are like, oh yeah, that buck, he did a big loop and almost came right back to where I shot him. And I'm like, yeah, because you shot him in his bedding area.
I see. Yeah,
So the deer wasn't like
you
doing something.
You spooked him out of his bedding area when you shot him, and then he came back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's one that you say. Then you hear the ones that he does this, he does that, and so a lot of it is you weigh it out. Like, but if there's number one dictator of whitetail behavior certainly for mature bucks, it's how do I get to my home?
Yeah.
And
I've tracked a lot of game. to me, it's you kind of try to simplify things, maybe more simple than they really are. But to me, a fringe hit animal is not mortally wounded, like a brisket hit,
Right.
Super far front shoulder. If you hit a deer low in the gut, like really low in the guts, you're probably going to have a hard time finding. But if you hit the deer anywhere kind of in the center mass, even if it's an absolute gut shot,
Right. Gut shots are great for tracking dog.
that deer's going to die.
Yeah. That's kind of my same philosophy.
And so I've got kids, and we've had last couple of years some issues with, not great shots.
Yeah.
And it's always like, I can pretty much tell you these days when we're going to find one and when we aren't.
Yep.
And it's those fringe hits, high or low,
Right.
are bad.
Yeah, leg hits. This is, to me, I feel like if I were to like label this year for us, it was the year of the leg shot.
Yeah, and you're not going to find that
You're not going to
animal.
find that deer.
But a lot of times people's perception of what actually happened is not real.
Right.
So they think they hit it good, but they really hit it super low, or the deer dropped.
Right.
I mean, that's the big thing, is you may
This is also
feel like you nailed it, and that deer.
Yeah, this is also the year of spine shock, and I've tried to explain this to people. Deer have these processes that come up off their spine and their back, and you shoot high or even a little low, and you hit one of those processes. That deer will fall where it stands, and then it gets up and runs off, and
You're not going to find that deer.
You're not going to find that deer.
I see.
You shot him through his back strap. You hit a process. It stuns them. Their nerves get all out of whack, and then they get their wits about them, and
then
they're
go.
off.
Yeah.
And he's I fell right here. He flopped around a little bit. I saw blood. I got blood. I'm like, yeah, but I'm telling you, that's the stereotypical spine shock.
Yeah.
And we took a few of those this year. Again, it was like, friend of a friend lives 10 minutes away. Okay, I'll bring Jaeger out. But like if that guy was 2 hours away, I would have said, I'm not coming.
Yeah.
It's going to be a waste of both of our time. And I don't want to say that's the catch-22, right? I mean, like nobody wants to make a bad shot and lose an animal. Nobody thinks they lost their animal, so they're going to grid search. They want to do what they can to find it usually, and I want to do everything I can to help somebody find their deer too. So it's weighing that, do everything you can versus what's a waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's judgment call, right? Nobody's ever going to really know all those answers, but this was the season of like we're taking too many of these. I was starting to like, man, I'm like Jaeger's, because we had like a stretch of 3 or 4 that just shoulder hits and spine, and I was like, you're not gonna. We didn't have recoveries, and I was like, I think he's losing his. I told my wife, I was like, I think he's losing his confidence. Like he's getting frustrated. I think I'm gonna go kill something so he can like stand on it and tug on it a little bit, because and those tracks were all the signs were all he's barking, it's live, I'm like,
right. I bet that didn't. My perception of like coon hunting, sometimes we'll tree a coon and not kill it for whatever reason, and you hear a lot of people say, "Oh, that's bad for a dog," but it doesn't make any difference. Like lots of competition coon hunters never shoot coons out after a dog gets a certain age, and that dog will tree coons the rest of his life and never even
taste one,
chew on one, and it like that. So there's something to be said for that. Here's my next question, and we'll be closing down pretty quick, but. So blood trailing, just like a human blood trailing, really is a skill and a craft.
For sure.
I hear a lot of guys. I think it's something that maybe not lost, but there's some people that aren't as good at it as others. Yeah. Do you think a lot of these deer that you've recovered could have been recovered if a human had been a better blood trailer?
No.
Okay. And where were those hits?
I can say that definitively.
Where were those hits?
I think there's one for Christie. It's a great example. I mean, they looked twice, multiple people, big groups. So on the video of that one, I counted over 700 paces from their point of loss that I saw 2 drops of blood on.
So it just would have been super tough.
That would have been really hard.
Okay.
Now again, if they had gotten maybe the whole football team and decided to go 20-yard sweep up that whole mountain, they probably would have stumbled on it. Yeah. But most people wouldn't have done that. They'd given up. It lived. And that was a hit. That was a hit that was low. The entry point looked great for a broadside deer, but the exit was almost back rear ham gut. So it skewered low through that deer.
I see.
Another video on the YouTube channel was for a tracker last season. It was Jaeger's last track last year, December track, last deer track. He did a board for me after that, but hunter shooting, ridge top, 30-30, downhill. He did everything right. He tracked for a ways. It's great blood, artery blood. There was brighter blood, some darker blood. I would have thought it was a dead deer right there too. If I was hunting, I saw the blood and I was like, early great blood that just petered out to nothing. And he didn't call a friend. He knew of blood tracking dogs. He didn't know of any near here, but he knew him from New York, and that's kind of where leash law tracking started in the States. And so he put his orange hat where he gave up, and he knew exactly where he hiked out and called us. So we shot at 9 that morning. We got there around 3:30 that day. And Jaeger went from point at hit site down this mountain face, rocky. He kind of broke off and did a big walkabout, which I think was just other live deer that had crossed the trail at that point. Came back. We're going down the face. 1 drop of blood. Creek. A drop of blood. Drop of blood where he came out of the creek. Then there was a road. Didn't see any blood on the road, but then there was a barbed wire fence, some hair on it. And then once he jumped that fence, he was in basically grass cattle pastures for as far as you could see. And Jaeger got in there, and so this is the end of that video, and he starts running these, like, I call them wax on, wax off circles from Karate Kid. Like, he starts just running these sweeps. But they're kind of sweeps that start progressing in a certain direction. And I actually turned the camera off. I was like, he's just running around following cows, Who knows what he's doing. And then he kind of worked away across a creek in that field, and then worked up by this barn, and then came back, and then his nose kind of settled down, and he just takes off. Like, he just settles on the line and starts going. And I'm just okay, we're just on a walk now. And I'm looking in that field, and it's all just grass.
You never saw any blood.
Never saw any blood. I bet we went 800 yards. There was even one like hedgerow that came and cut through, and there was no fence. So I'm like, and Jaeger's going through it. It's just like 5 feet wide. I'm like, I'm on my hands and knees there. I made him stop, and I'm looking. I'm like, if we're on it, it went through right here.
Right. Yeah.
And nothing. Continue on, and then hit a fence line, and there's a bloody weed about this tall.
Wow.
And that's why I turned the camera back on. And I was like,
did you find the deer?
I'm like, holy shit, dude! Like, you're on it. Started beep.
Yeah.
And that deer went up this fence row, and I thought he's hurting pretty good because he wasn't willing to jump it yet. And then he goes to jump it, and I'm about to cross a barbed wire fence, and I told the guy who shot it called a friend, and I was like, go around the fence so I can hand Jaeger over to you. So he's looping around for me to hand Jaeger over the barbed wire. He's like, oh, the deer's, here it is. And we got in there, and boom. Same thing.
That's awesome. How far did he go past where the guy lost it?
Well, from hit site to recovery was almost a mile.
Wow. See, I would.
And that was an intestine shot in the end. So you asked hit location.
Wow.
So it was, and you'll see intestines hanging out at the buck when we recover.
That's a good recovery right there.
Yeah. So that was again when I was like, all right, that's why I can definitively say like what a good tracker. And John, who tracked it before, he just said right in the film, he's like, we would have never found this deer without Jaeger.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome, man.
So that's why there's no hesitation when you say, well, a good human tracker. Fine, no doubt in my mind. There's a next level. All the surface area in that nose you're talking about, it's just no contest.
Yeah.
There's no contest. And that's why a lot of places, again, by law in Europe, they make you have one. You gotta have one.
Jaeger. Jaeger means hunter.
In German, yeah.
Hunter in German. Yeah. David, thanks a ton, man.
Thanks for having me.
Tell me where they can find you on social media and stuff.
So I'm on my YouTube channel that has the Jaeger videos is just Damon Bungard, Damon Bungard on YouTube. I'm on Facebook. And then Jaeger's stuff, he's at Jaeger Tracks on Instagram. So Jaeger Tracks on Instagram. And then he's got his own website. I just made him at Christmas, www.jaegertracks.com.
Yeah.
And Facebook, Jaeger Tracks. So
Yeah. Cool.
that's
Hey, that's been really informative, man.
Yeah,
It really has.
happy to be of service. And if anybody has any questions that's listening, and feel free to reach out to me. I do my best to respond to everybody that reaches out. And always available, happy to help, just like Jaeger is. So
Yeah.
enjoy
Thanks a ton, Damon.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
enjoy the rest of your ATA show.
Keep the wild places wild, because that's where the bears live.
Yep.
Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some Meat Eater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls. I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like them. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.